hunting as well. Hunting. There's a lot of land out there that they allow for hunting. Paintball, driving range for golfing, and that's easy, very easy to add and remove these types of things. So, for instance, if you had an area that doesn't have much golfing, but golf is a need for the area, you know, people are into it, you can actually take like 60 acres or something like that and turn it, go ahead and put a green on it, put tee boxes, elevated tee boxes, bent grass, so you know a little bit about it. And what you can do is go ahead and start knocking balls and just put up a big, huge net in the back. Ain't going to cost much. And that way you can also have additional revenue. Trees. And you can get a timber purchase contract with deposits during due diligence. Hardwood is very, very valuable. Very valuable. I told you about the story, the property where we could go ahead and pull off $750,000 worth of timber. It's only $500. In my home in Malibu, I have 6 queen palms that touch the moon. They're really, really, real pretty, and they go way, way up. And I noticed that some of the roots were showing from one of them. So I asked my landscaper, I said, what's up with that? And he goes, oh, you need this special stuff. I figured he was trying to sell me on something. So I said, okay, so tell me why. And he goes, because you got gophers. And I said, got a gopher? He goes, yeah. And I said, oh, okay. He goes, I can smoke them out. And I said, well, that's not nice. I said, can't we just fix the problem and let the gopher live? And he goes, well, if he kills your tree, these trees are about $150,000. So what do you do to smoke the gopher? We didn't smoke them. Peanut butter. All right. That's right. Just like Mr. Ed. Well. All right, minerals. Mineral rights are usually appraised separately. Okay, now write this down. Minerals can also include oil. Oil. There's huge oil and gas reserves, guys, all over the place. Coal as well. I actually know an individual that took over a property and they got it out of an REO package, real estate owned package. And the property, they purchased it, I don't want to misquote you, but I think it was right around 10 million or something around that range. And it had like $1 billion future value on it. And the reason being is because they just stopped pumping oil. And they have all this stuff with enzymes, and they go in there and then they do re-drilling and all this kind of stuff. It's not low-hanging fruit. But if you run into something that does have minerals, you don't want to go ahead and mention to the broker, to the seller, write this down, are the minerals conveyed? Are the minerals conveyed? Don't ask them that question. It's very important not to ask them that question. I'm going to tell you why in a moment. But write that down. It's not in your book. Feasibility of government permissions to get them is a different story. And I told you about the green stuff, the mineral. It turned out to be emerald, by the way. Yeah. Not that much money, right? Emerald's very, very expensive. Very expensive. And this thing was embedded. It was in the rock. It was embedded, so they strip it out. I don't know if they reformat it, if there's nuggets in there. It's out of the scope of what we're talking about. But the reason why I say don't ask if the minerals are conveyed, and this is the reason why, in places like Texas, you're always going to have properties out there that are going to have certain minerals, like oil or gas or water. And you can get in there and negotiate the deal. Now, when you're in there and you're negotiating the deal, recently just ran into this. Negotiating a deal, and you can say to them, okay, we're purchasing the property as is, where is. What does that mean? Everything. I'm going to purchase this as is, where is. He might say, you can go ahead and purchase this glass of water, but you can't have the water inside because I'm going to drink it. I'm going to charge you extra for the water, but you can have the glass. Right? Right on. And then I say, well, no, I want the whole thing, as is, where is. How much you want for it? Now, psychologically, Larry could say, he wants to buy it as is, where is. For some reason, he wants my water. So what would I want for my glass of water that I'm going to sip along with the cup? That's just the psychology behind it. They're selling it when you say as is, where is, because that's how we buy, and that's what's in your acquisition criteria. If you go ahead and say, so Larry, does that include the water for that $10? Larry might say, no, that water's very expensive. I paid such and such for the water, and now you owe me $15 for the water.
How about royalties?
How about royalties, he says, exactly. And we're going to get to that. Now, royalties, what Larry's mentioning, because Larry knows. You're not on the other side of the phone with me, are you, Larry? Okay. Thing about it is, guys, royalties just means that they get checks. They're going to capitalize on it in the long run. But as it's producing, they get a piece, is what that means. But without stating royalties, if you guys have the psychology nailed behind it and you're not going to go ahead and stir it up and ask them additional questions about it, it's best if you just approach it that you're going to have the minerals conveyed. And I don't even mention it in the letter of intent. It's just in the contract. This is as is with minerals conveyed. That's it. And then if they balk it and they say, no, 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 you're not getting my minerals. This oil or this is gas fields, or we already have 2 explorations happening. That's what it's called, exploration, when they go ahead and do seismic drilling. So if they're going to already be doing that, and they have exploration, you've seen them, right? The big squares, they look like robots that are standing here like this. Yeah, they're sucking the mineral out of the actual ground. And now what they're doing, if you're up in like towards Santa Barbara, or of course down towards Long Beach, you see them in the water. Now they're starting to go in the water, and I know I'm not going to mention anybody here on political party, but they did approve for them to come out and do additional drilling. Now I don't think that's the best thing to start pulling stuff out of the water, because obviously it gets exposed in the water and it messes with our ecosystem, out of the scope of today. But the point being is, don't mention the minerals up front. You want to go ahead and get those minerals. Sometimes the mineral rights can be worth 100,000 time return, million time return, and the land is just worthless at that point. You're all about the minerals. So think about that. And as Larry had mentioned, royalties, that just means if you're backing out the negotiation from contract and they say, well, no, what I want to do is I definitely want to have my minerals. And you say, well, no, we're only going to purchase the property with the minerals conveyed. And they say, well, I want royalties. You say, fine, we'll go ahead and cut you in for a percentage. And then you just have the royalty checks coming out to them as you're generating revenue from that. Okay? So that's minerals. Water rights, the property out in Weatherford, that actually, those water rights that I'm discussing, this was an aquifer, and water is not cheap. We all know what a bottle of water costs, right? Think about it. If you're sitting on tons and tons and tons of water, they're pulling the water out. They're sitting in barrels. They're pulling the water out, supplying the whole area. This thing was sitting on this humongous aquifer. And to purchase this property with this gentleman on a JV, I had myself looped in to the water rights. Is that important? Hello? Yes, it's very important. Rights to convey with property by default unless seller specifically reserves them. Sometimes to ask, but not always. That's what that means. You want the right to convey with the property by default unless the seller specifically reserves them. So get local government support, get city planning and engineer feedback early. That's part of your pre-contract due diligence. Okay? That's how that works. Page 63. Educate the city with demographic and other growth info and demonstrate trends for desired zoning. That's what I was talking about. Remember? I was saying, look, there's already development happening, and then your engineer would go down there and say, look, there's a need for the shopping center. There's a need for it. The reason being is because the other shopping center down the street is totally packed, and you guys got too much traffic, whether that's going to be traffic from finding out for traffic count from the cars or foot traffic or what have you. Have somebody go there, look at the property, check it out, make sure that there's a need for it, and grow a want that you're there. Small cities often easier to work with, but write this down. They need you more than you need them. Small cities need you more than you need them. So a lot of times you can get in there and call shots, but by no means don't ever get in there and try to boss anybody around. That's not what we're talking about. Okay. Next is quantify tax revenue. This is the impact of property taxes and local consumer spending. You need to go ahead and find out all about the property taxes and what local consumers are spending out in the area to justify you coming in. They want your tax revenue. They do. And they're going to bend over backwards to get that done. All right, let's move on. Submit complete plans. And the reason being, guys, is it's really simple. If you say to them, what's the highest and best use? And they say, okay, this is going to be the highest and best use. Or better yet, your engineer. Let's say you just go ahead and get it approved for a shopping center, and it's got a few out parcels. We're going to talk about that later. And possibly on the back end of the property, there's some additional land, maybe a couple acres on the back. So what you're going to do is a parking lot, and then you're going to do self-storage on the back. Then what you realize is there's no need for self-storage. Uh-oh. there's no need for self-storage because there's not a lot of apartments in the area and people just don't use self-storage. And you found out after the fact, because you didn't do your thorough due diligence, that there was another self-storage facility in the area that the broker forgot to tell you, and they went under because there was not a need because of the extra land that people get and the extra garages that people have, and they're living in big cheap homes because it's a mid to low income area. Now what you need to do is go back and change the plans and say to the city, okay, now we don't want self-storage on the back of this because there isn't a need. So what we're planning on doing is something entirely different. We're just going to open it up, and we want to go ahead and do a larger parking lot to support more traffic to the shopping center, and that means it's going to be harder to go back and get the plans approved. So write this down, get it right the first time. The way that we get it right the first time is to do our complete and thorough pre-contract due diligence by speaking with the area. Remember I said Tennessee? Remember I said I didn't tell you I had the broker go do this, but I did. The broker, I said, go out and go find what the people want. Go survey people on the street. Do what anything and everything you want. Walk into the local businesses in the area and say, what would you like to see here? What do we need for our growing area? They said, I'd love to see another shopping center. I'd love to see a movie theater. I'd love to see Cold Stone Creamery, if you guys know what that is. It's just an ice cream shop. These people want to see stuff in the area. So, okay, now if we know what the people want, then that means that the people are going to be desired to go there. Now, the movie theater is not cheap to build, but then again, it's not cheap to watch a movie. Okay? And if people are going to be there watching a movie, a lot of times just because you have a movie theater there, it just drives as an anchor tenant. Because when people show up with their family and they're walking around and then you have retail stores around, people, what do when you go to a movie? When you have to wait 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or you get out of the movie, you go next door, maybe grab an ice cream, go shopping. That's just, it's the way it works, guys. It's all about driving the traffic there by need and a want, okay? Maintain existing community plans, just like I had mentioned. That means keep the facade the way the facade's supposed to be, all right? Create parks and bike paths as well. Now, dedicate land to the city for park and extra green space, etc. There is some environmental that in areas that they're going to require green space. They're going to need green space. And if they require 20% green space or 10% green space, every area is different. If they're going to require that green space and you're buying 100 acres, is that going to affect your overall numbers? Of course it will. But that's a great thing because you're giving back to the community and you're creating bike paths, you're beautifying your property, and then the city maintains it. They run the water. All the water is going all over it. It looks pretty. People are riding their bikes. The sun's shining. Everybody's smiling. And your property's right there. Okay? So don't look at it as a bad thing. It's a good thing. All right? Now help local charity and have the charity help you. Okay? Now let me elaborate on that. Okay. Announce that your intent is to donate some money to a local charity. All right? Find a local charity. Or better yet, have your project manager do it. Or if we're doing the heavy lifting, we do it. Then what we do is we ask the key city official for recommendation of that local charity. Who would you recommend, Mr. City Official? Oh, I would recommend the, Children's Foundation for leukemia or what have you. Okay, great. Then what you do is you notify the charity of your intent. Look, once we get these plans approved, our intent is to go ahead and take these plans and sell this project, or take these plans and get this development done. And this is some of the revenue that we're going to be generating. And what we're willing to do is give you 1% or 2% or 5%. Overall picture is of $30 million bucks. That's not a bad day. Now, if you give 1% of $30 million bucks, that's not a bad chunk of change. If the project gets stonewalled, held up for any reason, because now all of a sudden, perhaps they're just dragging their feet, because it sometimes happens. Tell the charity that their donation is at risk. Tell them. Say, look, we expected to have it done because this is the timeline. We expect to have it done, and here we're going to go ahead and give you your percentage. We need to get this. We already got people in place. We're ready to make this happen. And then ask them, do you think you can do me a favor? John, can you do me a favor? Can you go ahead and give a call over to Frank? Because Frank recommended you. And just ask Frank when he expects that donation to come through. Would that be okay? What do you think happens, guys? That's right. Puts them going, gets them going. And it's a technique that you can use that moves people quick. Remember, be creative, get out there, make it happen. The more people you involve in your project, like giving people vested interest, so that way they watch it like it's their own baby, they're going to make sure that that project moves forward. Now, is John's not a part of the project, the Children's Foundation, not a part of the project, but they got vested interest in it because they're getting something when something happens. So now the more people you got on your team to make it happen, the more people push it through. All right. Bottom of 63, improvement strategies for income property. Remember, the goal is to increase the NOI. That means raise the income and lower expenses whenever possible. Raise the income equals occupancy, rent rates, vending, etc. That's what we need to do. Now, here's a tip. To raise the occupancy quickly, write this down. Offer the leasing agent generous incentives. All right? If it's an apartment, spend a lot of money on marketing and have a big weekend party, just like a little carnival. Did you guys see the front of Kevin's building, his apartment? Did that thing look great or what? That thing was great. He had a big, huge sign on the front of it. Now, me, I would have put a big sign that said, all pets welcome. Something in that regard. You see the signs on the street right now. You see them and they say first month free. Okay? No cost move-in. Low move-in. Generating, making it happen. All right? If you go ahead and hold a big party, you can get the whole thing leased up in one weekend. You can. That's the way you get it done. All right? So let's go ahead and turn to page 64. Page 64. Okay. Lower expenses. These are I wrote these in for you already, but I do want you to keep this in and make some additional notes on it. Utilities. You want to lower the utilities. Major systems. I want you to write this next to it, please. Major systems. You want to replace them if they're not working up to par. Management. If they're not running it properly, you want to either get new management or adjust to the local costs. Because a lot of times in ups and down markets, when the markets go down, everything gets adjusted, right? We know that. People, they get cut. They cut jobs, they cut everything, they lower, they bring in new people for cheaper. That's the way it works, guys. It's no different in commercial. All right, but if they're doing a great job, we always pay people what they're worth. All right. Service contracts. Renew those for cheaper. You want to renew any service contracts, any existing service contracts, renew those for cheaper. Now, places like on the East Coast, you have oil. You have oil that heats your place, that does your stuff. And you just need to look at those oil contracts or what it's costing to bring it in. Those are the people that you want to look at those expenses. You can lower those expenses, making sure that they're not too high. Now, condo and park conversions. Apartments, office, hotels to residential office and condos, and then hotels, condo-tels. And guys are even taking yachts and turning them over to condos. You guys ever heard about that? Oh, yeah, they're taking yachts, these big, huge yachts, like Carnival Cruise style yachts, these ships, and they're turning them over to, you can own them for a whole year. There's yearly cruises that you can take, and you can live on the thing all year round. I had a buddy who almost did it. And I said, why do you want to do that? He's going to go live on the boat? He goes, yeah, it's all you can eat. Okay. I don't know how much you want to eat, but that's fine. But I don't think the food's all that great on those personally, but I'm not one to complain. But the thing about it is they turn them into actual condominiums. And we were on a cruise not too long ago, and we watched that movie Poseidon right before we went on the cruise. Not only that, guys, all of a sudden, about 1 o'clock in the morning, we heard a big noise. What the hell's going on? The lights started flickering, the lights went out. And the ship was already slowing down, and it stopped in the middle of the ocean. The power went out. And we were at the very, very, very top, and on the big suite thing. And I look over, and even though it was far down, you could hear the water. It was eerie. It was going psh, 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 slapping up against the boat. I said to myself, I think this is going to be the last cruise. I was waiting for the rogue wave to come. It's like, Thing about it is, people, they understand the value of turning things over to condominiums. They do. Like I'd mentioned, Trump, he actually has his big building, and what he does is he has half of the building for a hotel, and then you can own it for 6 months out of the year, and then the other 6 months it's a hotel. That's what it is, a hotel room. So you own it half, and then it rents out half. You can't own it the full time. All right? So that's something that he did as well. Also, most people cringe when I say condo conversions in a down market when residential cyclical, but guys, don't sweat it. I'm not just talking about apartment condos. What I am discussing to you is the professionals, the dentists and the doctors, the attorneys, these professionals that own their property. And I've said it before, and if you've heard it, that's fine. But these professionals will do anything to own their office. Think about it. When you're a dentist, think about how many dentists there are out there, right? Business must be tough for these folks, right? And what are they doing with their hands in people's mouths all day long? All day long, their hands are in people's mouths. But it's a profession. And these people, they need to be the local go-to family dentist in the area. They want to be there for long. They want to have their letterhead say they've been around since 1989, and they're still there today, and they're going to be there forever. So they'll do anything to purchase their unit, that one solid unit, so that way they can stay there and they can own real estate. Because professional-minded individuals, they understand real estate. That's why we have a lot of professionals here as well. If we have any dentists in the room,